Alright, I don't know, like, this new setup, it's going wild right now. Hey y'all, it's Michael, and for this video, I'm gonna share with y'all the books that I just finished reading, what I'm currently reading, and then I'm hoping to read for January 2023. Yay! New year, new reading me. Alright, so here are 3 books that I finished in December. Alright, the first book that I finished was Almond by Jeong Won-pyun, translated from the Korean to English by Jun-seo Lee. Y'all, I didn't like this book. So this story is about Youngjae, who has this condition called Alexithymia, which is basically a condition where you don't experience and show emotions, essentially. First off, the translation to this is actually not that bad. It has this very stark type of writing. I noticed for me personally, I think this is very similar to a lot of translated works in Asia, is that it has this very stark, minimalist, very just didactic type of word choice when it comes to English. And you know what? I do enjoy that type of translation because it has a particular feel to it. And I feel like this translation works really well because in that regard, stories in actually first person, and it really shows Jeonjae's like state of emotion. I think my main issue with this is how the pacing and the plotting essentially services a story, because a lot of this, for me personally, I felt like very circumstantial, like things just happen just to happen. And there are moments in here where it's very like something incredibly shocking happens, and Jeongjae reacts to it obviously with no emotion whatsoever. And I think that is strong with that regard. There is also a second character in here, like the other main character, I guess you would say, Gon, who is the complete spectrum of Jeongjae, where it's like so much emotion compared to little emotion and not being able to handle that essentially. I always know I don't like a book when I am reading it and I feel as though I'm just reading it just to finish it. And I knew this right away when I got like, there's 4 parts in here, when I got like a little bit of a quarter way in, I was just like, I'm not really liking it. And then by the halfway point, I was like, yeah, I'm just finishing it just to be finishing it. Luckily, through the halfway, the chapters are very short. But in the end, I just didn't groove with this that much. I gave it 2.5, 5 stars on my Bookly app. Yeah, and the one thing about this is also, I was surprised I didn't like it because I really enjoy coming of age stories. Like, that is one of my things that I love so much, and why I still read a lot of young adults stories, is because I really enjoy that type of story. And I think that's just because of my love of anime, because there's a lot of stories like that, like coming of age and like finding yourself. But here I just didn't really like it. And again, I think similar to the other story that I'm gonna wrap up in a few, it feels very meandering. I feel like it just like this. Yeah. So yeah.
And of course, someone is always mowing the lawn. All right, the next book is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, performed by Kirk Graves. I listened to this on audiobook. Y'all, this book was incredibly disappointing personally for me, okay? I was super excited to actually listen to this. The previous novel that I read, House by the Cerulean Sea, I really enjoyed it. But this one is very disappointing. This one is a story very similar to the last one. It has the same vibes and whatnot, but I think it lacked some of the magic from the previous story. This is about Wallace, who is the head lawyer of a law firm, and Wallace starts off as very like that type of character. He doesn't make time for friends, for family and whatnot, and he makes very like he's just a very stern person in general. We actually start off the book as Wallace is firing someone, and I thought this is where I was like, oh, this is really great. Basically, he passes away because of a heart attack, and he gets led into this world of like, they're essentially like Grim Reapers. I feel like this loses a lot of magic as the story goes on, and it really doesn't hold up basically 2/3 of the way, because the beginning is very interesting. It has that very similar feel anyways to the House by the Cerulean Sea. Wallace is very similar character-wise. I don't want to say generic, but it's just very, as we've seen it all done before. And that really leads to, I think one of my issues is the dialogue. Sometimes the way that people speak, it has this very like preachy kind of biblical, not biblical I would say, but very like philosophical way of talking that seems, for me anyways, it didn't feel very genuine. It's like what you would, okay, this is no shade, but it feels like it's like the stuff that you would find at a Hallmark greeting card. It just felt very like I've he I've came across these phrases before. It just feels very generic. Also, structure story-wise, I felt like a lot of this meanders. There are parts in here, especially towards especially towards the beginning, where it feels like, where is this going? I just didn't feel this purpose. Like, okay, come on, let's get to the point. It just felt like it just lingers a little bit too long personally for me. There are parts in here that I'm not gonna lie, it was very funny, very humorous, and it has that type of like spark to it that the other previous novel had. That's only like just the small part in here that I really enjoyed. The rest of this, I just felt like it just felt very samey, very just surface level, just generic, and I didn't like it that much. I gave it 2.5 5 stars on Goodreads. All right, The Furrows by Namwali Sopel. This book, y'all, I have so many thoughts about this, so that's why I am recording on this video so I can ramble. Okay, here we go. So this actually starts off with an incredible like first line, which is, I don't want to tell you what happened, I want to tell you how it felt. And that really encompasses what this book is really about. And I thought that first sentence was just incredible. This, I think, is one of the most disappointing books I have read in quite a while. Here we go. I didn't realize that we actually read that Sarpel wrote, which was The Old Drift, which was actually a Read So Lit novel. And so going into this, when I was starting it, I was like, oh wait, that title sounds familiar. I was like, oh my gosh, we read this for book club. I was like, so that made me even more excited. So this book split up into 2 parts, and I feel that it takes the biggest fumble I have ever seen on the second part. And that's because, okay. So this story is about Cassandra, who something happened to her brother Wayne when they were young. It basically has 2 timelines essentially, with Cassandra as an adult and then Cassandra as a kid. And we get these these flashbacks of essentially what happened. And I think this book, now if this book, just the first half, I would give it 6 out of 5 stars. I think it is that incredible because it really gives this incredible feeling. Like when I was reading it, I felt it. I felt Cassandra's emotions. I felt her I felt her being scared. I felt like when she didn't know what's going on, I felt it. I felt this way that explores grief in such a nuanced, beautiful, incredible like the writing, the first half, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, wow. I'm not gonna lie, the first half really blew my mind. I was so into it, y'all. I love how there's also this, I wouldn't say unreliability, but this, or not even like confusion, but just this not questionability, but people grieve in different ways and people remember things differently, and I love that. The first half of this was so incredible. The writing is incredible. The syntax of the sentences, the way it has this poetry way to it, I was like, oh, I am so in. And it really was surprising as how this, especially that first half, how it just, the story kept progressing, and I was so into it because just the way Cassandra is feeling, I as a reader was completely, I felt it with her. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I really understand how you feel about losing a family member. I was like, this is incredible. Then I think the second half of this is not good. If this was just a novella for the first half, it would just be superb. It would, wow. But the second half, I feel really lost me. So as the transition to the transition from the first half of the novel to the second half was actually like what like it was actually so cool. But then once that ball got rolling, someone's car alarm. It's always a car alarm or someone's mowing. I felt as though the second half of this, I wanted to get off the ride. I just like I'm it. And I think it might, I don't know what it was, but I just was not feeling it. And something about that second half completely lost me. I don't want to give too much away, but not only because it switches perspective, but it's kind of like, I think it gives a little bit too much away, or not in a too much away, but like, I don't think as a reader, it's like two different books. And the second half, y'all, really fumbled it for me. I just was like, oh my God, this is just like a slog at this point. Because also, even, let's just say the second half, just if you take it just like as by itself, it doesn't hold up. The revelation of what might be going on, I was just like, why? And also, now the second half, I'm going to give credit to, is that it's written very differently from the first half, and that's because it's a whole different perspective towards the end, where you even do get the revelation, and it's kind of like a resolution, not resolution. But I just don't think it holds up, and I think that's what really disappointed me, is that the first half was just so incredible that the second half was just not good. I really didn't like the second half, and I think this book really hinders on that second half. Like, you will either love it or not like it, depending on that second half, and I cannot get on board. But man, if that first half was just like a novella, wow, just wow. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars because I think it's like half-half. It really is half-half. The second half, y'all, it's unfortunately disappointing.
You can tell a lot with that. They were very disappointing to say the least, unfortunately. But 2023 has started off really well so far. First off, I just am doing so well in my daily reading habits. There was one day where I was like home late from work and I was like, I don't really feel like reading, so I only read like a couple of minutes. But I am catching up, like especially as the current filming of this, I think I'm doing really well, if I do say so myself. But the first book that I finished for January, and it goes along with the TBR coming up, A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. The reason why I picked up and finished this book is because I'm also wanting to read The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. I picked this book out because it was on the New York Times 10 best books of 2022, and come to find out that this is a sequel to this. So I was like, oh, well then let me read this first, since I have it in my personal library, and I'm gonna read it now or never. So I was like, let me just do that right quick. I am doing a separate video on this to give more of my thoughts on these books. So check that out whenever it comes out, because I'm about to start on this soon. But y'all, this book was good. I'm not gonna lie. This was a great start to the year, and I was like, oh, this is good. You know that feeling when you're starting off the new reading year and you're just like, wow, the first book. The other book that I want to get to, I think it'll be either this month or next month, depending on how it goes, I don't know, is actually Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And I swear I had a copy of it in my personal library, but for the life of me, I don't know where it is. I don't know, but I'll be able to get this from the library, and this is important because I want to read this before we read the book for Read So Lit that's coming up. So yeah, there's that. Now, I am reading a digital book also on my Kindle that I have over there somewhere. The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. I'm over halfway through, 50% with this, and yeah, I'll talk more about it on my wrap up, but we'll see how that one goes. But I also wanted to pick a book physically from my own library, and I wanted like a chunker. So I decided to pick up Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. I just got on page like 68, and at first, like the first few chapters of this, because this is chapter 8, I was like, I don't really get it. Like I don't understand. Like it's not that I understand it, but it's like I don't think I get it. You know what I'm saying? But around the 50-page mark, I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. and it has like a bump bump type of writing. I'm liking it. I don't know. It really like. Granted, it's about war, but I'm really liking it. Like it has this fun factor that I really enjoy when I read books. I don't know. Those are the books that I'm currently like reading as of right now. So the next few books are like I am going to just like randomly get from the library and whatnot. I have no kind of structure at this point. I'm just picking up books as I get them. And I just want to share two books with y'all that I got from the library. One is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. I heard this was really interesting, like and funny, like something about a woman. I don't know that much about this, but I've been seeing this around, so I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And then the other one that I got from the library so far is Red Island House by Andrea Lee. I seen this and I was like, sure, why not? A lot of these books I'm just picking randomly. I also have a few books that I'm on the hold on my Kindle because I started reading back on my Kindle so I can read like this at night and like rest my head. But yeah, so those are just this year I'm just going with the flow or whatever. Yeah, so if you read any of those books, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Until then, I'll see you guys till next time. Bye! I feel it so much that I think I'm gonna get back into my like usual reading groove because I've been making really good progress with a lot of these books. So we'll see how it goes for this year.